thank you very much, Jane, and thank you for your support. Last time I was up here, you gave a. I was hoping you'd give the same introduction you gave the last time. It was about 20 minutes long, and it was one of the best speeches I've ever heard about. So that's okay. You can save it for the next time. But thank you so much, Jane, for your help and support here in Spartanburg and Madonna. Wherever you went. There you go, over there. It's great to see you again. It's great to be back here in Spartanburg. We spent a lot of time here and worked very, very hard. It's one of the first places I came when I came to South Carolina, and we've worked the upstate and spent a lot of time. I don't know, it's my almost 25th visit. Yeah, we've done over 100 events here in South Carolina. You hear a lot of the candidates, talking about how this is a different race and running for president. You don't have to go to the early primary states, and I just don't believe that. I think that you folks have a great tradition in the early primary states, Iowa, New Hampshire, and South Carolina, of doing a good job measuring up the candidates. And you can't measure up the candidates unless the candidates come around to see you. Right. And so I've made it a point to come around to be here. I'd say probably almost half the people in this room I've met before, and at least or I've seen them at events before, and that's a good sign for me that people are when they see you, they come back and they're interested in hearing more and supporting you. And we're going to continue to work hard here in South Carolina. I'll tell you how dedicated I am. I've had my daughter Elizabeth, who's my oldest, down here in South Carolina for almost 2 months, representing me and working for me and giving speeches for me and working here. I'll introduce Elizabeth. Why don't you step forward here? For better or for worse, Elizabeth is the reflection of her mother and me, because from the very earliest age we homeschooled Elizabeth. We started, she was a blessing, because I know there may be some homeschoolers here, and that we were fortunate that our first child was a great homeschooling child, so it was a nice on-ramp for us before we got to the boy, and we were a little bit more comfortable. I'm not too sure it would have gone quite as well if it had been opposite, but Elizabeth was great, and she really did blaze the path for us to now be in our 15th or 16th year of homeschooling our now 7 children that we have. We have Elizabeth, who's 20, and then John, who's 18, Daniel's 16, Sarah Marie is 13, and we have 12-year-old Peter, 10-year-old Patrick, and little Bella, who's 3.5 years old. So we feel very, very blessed to understand what it's like to raise a family here in America, to understand the difficulties and trying to mold not just the academic future of your children. I always say when I talk to folks about education is that we have an educational system that tests and focuses on one aspect of a child's life, and that's academic achievement. And how many people here are only concerned about your child's academic achievement? Raise your hand. You can't, I haven't found anybody in America who's only focused about their child's life is how well they do academically. They're concerned about their character, their moral vision, their spiritual life. They're concerned about the whole child. And yet we have an education system that focuses simply on one narrow part. And we have a federal government that has encouraged that narrow focus, both from the standpoint of federal legislation to have this focus on testing, to federal judiciaries that don't allow schools and don't allow parents to have an educational environment that does mold and focus on the whole child. I can tell you, as president, people always ask me, "Are you for the abolishment of the Department of Education?" I don't talk about that. I talk about a vision for education. I don't want to be against something. I want to be for something. Okay? I think that's really what we need to focus on. And what I'm for is a vision of education that is focused on helping the consumer, or should I say the customer, of the education system in America. Now, who is the customer of the education system in America? The answer to that question, before anybody says anything, is the parents. Now, why are the parents the customer of the education system? Because it's the parents' responsibility to educate their children. And therefore, the government is there, really, if you think about it, the government's there to help you give your child what they need to be good students, but good citizens, good people. and to make a positive contribution to our community and our country. The problem is that's not how the education system in America looks at it. The education system in America looks at parents as, in many cases, now some of the better schools do a better job, but they look at educating children writ large as opposed to educating your child. We have an education system that does not focus on helping parents helping parents create an environment that maximizes their child's potential in every area, not just academic. Can we go to a system like that? People say, well, that's pie in the sky, you can't do that. Why? Why can't we go to a system where we have a parent-centered education, where parents get the ability to craft and mold and cooperate in providing what is best for each child in America? That's the vision that as I travel around the country, that I try to communicate. That we need to get rid of all these federal programs that tell states and teachers to fill out forms and reports and all this kind of stuff. When I came to Washington, D.C., 3% of the education budget in this country was paid for by the federal government. 3%. It's now 11%. The federal government's role in education is getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and guess what happens? The local communities get smaller and smaller and smaller, and parents become more and more marginalized. So from my perspective, we need to get rid of all of this federal oversight into education and have a president goes out and talks about, not mandates, because I'm not for the federal government coming in and mandating doing something different, but I believe one of the most important roles the president can play is to have a national conversation, to talk about things that are important and try to shape the public mood as to how we can have the dynamic change here in your own local community. What we can do in the federal government is take all the constraints off that make the education system not work well. And we can liberate teachers and administrators and parents to have a dynamic system so you can customize the educational experience for every child in America. Imagine how dynamic this system can be. Think of the technology. Think of the ability for us to deploy resources in a way that's creative, in a way that supports parents and their moral vision without having the complications of church-state issues. This is the kind of dynamic education system we have, and I come from that because that's really what we envision and hope for as parents who homeschool. That's why we did it, because we wanted to put together a curriculum and an educational environment that did meet the needs, all of the needs of our child, not just the academic needs of our child. And so I know that some of you who are homeschoolers, and at least I've been told that, and I just want to congratulate you for, in my opinion, being pioneers in doing exactly what our country needs. You now have, I know 15 years ago when we started, most colleges wouldn't even know what to do with a homeschooling transcript. And now they're clamoring for homeschooling kids, because these are the kids who are lighting up the lights and adding so much value to the educational experiences at college campuses all over. So the model is here. And I understand that not all families can homeschool. I understand that. But what we do need is to change the paradigm here. I hear from teachers all the time the frustration they have that parents think, too many parents in America think that, you know, when they reach a certain age, it's time just to drop the kids off and they check out. And we can't allow that to happen. We can't. I mean, parents, if we're going to have a country that's a free country, that's a country that believes in bottom up as opposed to top down, that means parents have to take more responsibility for the education of their children and get more involved in that process. And I know some parents say, well, I'd like to, but I'm frustrated. Well, let's change that. And let's change the whole paradigm when it comes to education. And I'm hopeful that, you know, having this discussion during this campaign, and I guarantee you having this discussion when I become president will be a very, very high priority for us, because there's nothing more valuable as an asset and a resource to this country than the young faces I see out here in this room today. And we are not doing a good enough job for children across this country. We are failing miserably as a society in not just academic achievement, but in crafting children with great character, virtue, morality, and spirituality, which is absolutely essential for the continuation of our republic, much less